Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to Assembled Vaishnava devotees. So we thank you all for being here. Today is the beginning of a new week, Monday, and we are blessed. We have Her Grace, Mother Vrajalila Devi, who is our own mother, and she needs no introduction. If you are here and you do not know Mother Vrajalila, you probably just descended from a different planet outside of this universe.
Funny.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see you and also hear from you, because I haven't seen you for quite a while, Mother.
Yes, and
Yes, I haven't seen you for quite a while. So without further ado, we'll put the verse on the screen, and Mother Vraj, you share your blessings with us.
Hare Krishna. Very well. Thank you, Saha. Thank you, everyone that's on the call. Thank you so much for being here. Very grateful. Hari Hari.
Very well.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading a very short and sweet verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 25. I think we got to make the screen a little smaller, Saha.
Do you see now?
Yes, I can see now. Thank you. So text 25. Atabidiyangamano anukulam prabhashashe bhagavata pradahanaha yadaha vyasakiratma vidya visharado nirpatim sadhu prishtaha ata therefore abhidehi Hey, please explain. Anga Osuta. Okay, I'm gonna do my screen here so I can see this. Osuta Goswami, Manaha mind, Anukulam, favorable to our mentality. Prabha Shashe, you do speak. Bhagavata, the great devotee. Pradhanaha, the chief. Yat aha, what he spoke. Vyasaki, Sukadeva Goswami. Atmavidya, transcendental knowledge. Visharadaha, expert. Nirpatim, unto the king. Sadhu, very good. Prishtaha, being asked. Srila Prabhupada's translation. Oh, Sutta Goswami, your words are pleasing to our minds. Please therefore explain this to us as it was spoken by the great devotee, Shukadeva Goswami, who is very expert in transcendental knowledge and who spoke to Maharaj Parikshit upon being asked. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Knowledge explained by the previous Acharya, like Sukadeva Goswami, and followed by the next, like Sutta Goswami, is always powerful transcendental sound, and it is therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. Om Gana Timirandasya, Gana Gana Shalakaya, Jakshu Amilitamyena, Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi, Asthatya Deshatarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste, Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane, Shri Gora Karuna Shakti, Bhakti Tirtha Tinamine, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva-cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hari Hari. Thank you guys again for allowing me to be on this platform, this most glorious African platform. I love to be here. It's my home and I'm grateful. And so let's look at this verse. It seems small, however, it's so packed and it's so powerful. And I'm just going to go to some of the synonyms on here. So the sages are asking Sutta Goswami to share. Sutta Goswami, Angas, please explain. They're asking him to please explain because it's favorable. Anukulam is favorable to their mentality. They want to hear, they want to learn. Whatever was spoken by the chief, they call him the chief, the great Bhagavata, the great Bhagavata, Pradhanaha, the chief Bhagavata, when he spoke, Sukadeva Goswami. And what did Sukadeva Goswami speak? Atma Vidya, transcendental knowledge. And they're continuing to glorify him, to acknowledge him. Visar Radaha, he's expert. He spoke this unto Maharaj Parikshit. And he's so Maharaj Parikshit, who's a very good sadhu, he asked the question. And of course, we know that this whole section of Bhagavatam that we've been studying from the first canto are questions that are being answered to the sages. And so now Sutta Goswami, the sages are saying that what Sutta Goswami has said is so pleasing to their minds. So we all know when someone says something that's pleasing to our minds, how that makes us feel, right? We normally feel very peaceful, very, very satisfied, very happy. Those are some of the feelings when somebody says something that's pleasing. So here, what's pleasing that Sutta Goswami is speaking from what Sukadeva Goswami shared, it's transcendental knowledge. And who's that transcendental knowledge spoken to? Maharaj Parikshit. So this is the continuation of what you've been going through for the last, I guess, I'm not sure how long. I've seen some of the classes. I don't see all the classes anymore. My dear, where is he? I don't see him. But anyway, I don't see the classes being posted anymore. So I always, if I miss it, I go to YouTube. And so I'm looking. So because I haven't heard the classes, I thought, okay, I haven't heard some of those classes. So let me myself review what you have been reading. And so I just go through this review very quickly. This is the second canto that you're reading now. We're up to chapter 3. And this is the chapters that's dealing with the superiority of bhakti. And the first part of this canto 2, that all of you have this transcendental knowledge, you all learned about the first step in God realization. So now if I ask you, if we're in class, like a school thing, and I say, what did you learn from the first step in God realization? Everybody must have at least one thing, because you have amazing speakers on this platform. So, and of course we know that these are the answers that's being given from Sukadeva Goswami when he had acknowledged Parikshit's wonderful questions. And so here he's explaining the first step in God realization. And so one of the things that stood out for me in this first step in God realization is if one faithfully hears Srimad Bhagavatam, which I am presenting to you, one develops unflinching faith towards the Supreme Lord. If one faithfully hears Srimad Bhagavatam. So someone could say, how do we faithfully hear Srimad Bhagavatam? Well, let's look at the examples of people that faithfully hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, because we know everything is coming to us in disciplic succession. It's being passed down. So this knowledge is passed down. Krishna explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. And he explains that this knowledge it's been going on since time immemorial. And sometimes it's lost, and sometimes and then it has to be revived. So, but this knowledge has always been there and is passed down, right? We heard Arjuna, we heard in the Bhagavad Gita, and those scholars that I hear when Krishna spoke about Vibhishwan, knowledge been passed down since Vibhishwan, and it's been going on. And if we want to say, well, how do we apply that to modern times? People have faithfully heard Srimad Bhagavatam in modern times. Well, embarrassingly, we have Sahadev Prabhu faithfully hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every single day, faithfully hearing, because, this is his service. So we will get to this part of the Bhagavatam where in chapter 3, where we're talking about devotional service. So his devotional service is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam every day. Now, somebody could say, well, faithfully, does that mean 100% faithfully? I don't know. Only he and Krishna knows that. So, but we know that faith is there, otherwise he wouldn't be doing it every day as he does. And then we go, this is all that you did. I just needed to familiarize myself because, as I said, I haven't seen some of the speakers. So then the Lord in the heart. So you went on to the Lord in the heart. And in that section of the Bhagavatam that you've been studying, all of you, been studying every day. There are several sections in that part. And what stood out for me in that part of the Bhagavatam, which I always look at Bhagavatam and think, because Bhagavatam is transcendental knowledge, what would I like to go back and really dive myself into, absorb myself in? What would I like to learn more about? And so here in this section, the Lord in the heart, this is the section of the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam that you all been studying again. So those texts related to establishing sadhana bhakti as the best of all paths. That stood out for me. I don't know who gave that class or who gave classes related to that. However, for me, because I'm curious and because my nature is always wanting to learn, so establishing sadhana bhakti as the best of all paths, having been a person that's explored different paths, it's, I'm curious to know, wow, what was told to the sages about sadhana bhakti? Was that what attracted me to give my life, to absorb myself in this path of bhakti? So those are some questions that I asked myself from the study of that part of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then where we are now in the Bhagavatam is pure devotional service. This is the section on changing the heart. How do we change our heart? Okay, we understand. We need to have faith. Then we need to, faith has to be anchored in the fact that sadhana bhakti is the best. We need to have that faith anchored there. And then we go on to understanding more about pure devotional service and how our hearts get changed. And this is where we are. And so how do our hearts get changed? What we got to hear. We got to hear transcendental knowledge, continuously hear, every single day here. So we are now at the section of transcendental knowledge. And what did Srila Prabhupada say about transcendental knowledge? Srila Prabhupada said, it's a gift. It's a gift. To be able to learn is a gift. So here we are in this part of the Bhagavatam, this last section, and I have the privilege of trying to share something from this last verse about transcendental knowledge. And what is the effect? Well, before we go to the effect of transcendental knowledge on us, because that's what the verse is sharing here, knowledge explained by the previous Acharya, like Shukadev Goswami, and followed by the next, like Sutta Goswami, is always powerful transcendental knowledge, and therefore penetrating and useful to all submissive students. So there's a little catch there, right? One has to become submissive. And so we know Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna this verse that's so beautiful. It's the first verse I ever learned. Actually, I realized that I don't learn verses very easily. And the way I learn any verse that I've learned is by someone in relationships. That's how I learned, through relationships. And so I have this story that stayed with me. And I think I might have shared this story on this platform before, or some platform, I don't remember. This story of me in the very early days of my Krishna consciousness. I was trained as a book distributor. And thank you, Raj Taruni, for being here. So grateful you're here. So, well, you're here. You're a resident of this platform. So as a book distributor in my very early days of Krishna consciousness, still early, Krishna consciousness is always, ever increasing. However, in those early days, around 1979, 1980, I was distributing books in New York City. And every day, somehow, my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Swami, had arranged for me to be a part of a Sankirtan party that would go out every single day. And actually, I was the Lakshmi from that collect from doing those books was going to the development of Africa. It was going to buying books for Africa. That's before I even went to Africa. So I've been serving Africa for a long time. And so 1979, 1980, there I was on the streets of New York City distributing books. And every evening we would come home and we would have hot milk. And then we would have the Nectar of Devotion class with Dravida Prabhu. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dravida Prabhu, but he would recite with us the Nectar of Devotion, speak with us on the Nectar of Devotion. And he was, as you all know, he's expert at Sanskrit. And I remember thinking, wow, I really would love to learn, Sanskrit. However, as a book distributor, I didn't have much time to learn anything so much. So I remember sharing this with a devotee. Her name is Tulsi Manjari. I remember sharing with her, I'm so enamored by how he speaks Sanskrit. I really want to learn. She says, she told me, every day before you go on Sankirtan, bring your clothes, because she was the washerwoman. She was the washer devotee. She washed everybody's clothes while they go on Sankirtan. And when we come back, we would collect our clothes from her. She says, every day when you go, when you bring your clothes to me, let's spend a few minutes and we'll learn a verse that will make a difference in your life. This time I'm not yet initiated. So I was like, okay. So I'd bring her my clothes and she would teach me this verse. Tadvidi paripatena, paripashena sevaya, upadeshanti tekyanam, yadinas tattvadarshinaha. That verse is why I'm still here today. That verse made a difference in my life, and that devotee made a difference in my life. So first thing about transcendental knowledge is to remember devotees are very important in our lives. There is nothing more important than the mercy, the blessings, the association of a devotee in our life, wherever we may be. So that experience of learning that verse is what made me want to commit more to the path, which is in the second part of this Bhagavatam we're studying, in the second chapter, Sadhana Bhakti. It's the best of all paths. That verse assisted me because that's the criteria, right? Is to understand our relationship with the spiritual master. And so this is what how this chapter is ending. We're learning Parikshit he was the perfect disciple of Shukadeva Goswami, the perfect teacher. And now these sages, they all have different levels of being involved in the path, different, they're all different yogis, as you all learned from the previous chapter, that that they're practicing all different kinds of yoga. And so here, the sages, they're wanting to hear more. They're wanting to hear more from Sutta Goswami. So here we have this vision of always a teacher and disciples. Always. This is always a part of the path of bhakti. To have someone that's sharing, someone that we're learning from, someone we're growing from. And so on our path, of course, that's the spiritual master. So this verse, Prabhupada breaks it down for us in one of his classes. He in 1976, he gave a class in Los Angeles. And he spoke about this verse, Tadvidi Paripatena. And he explains that Tadvidi Paripatena, this is Bhagavad Gita 431. I'm sorry, 434, that's the verse. He explains to us that first surrender, pranipata, surrender. First of all, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj writes a beautiful book on surrender that's easy for anyone to read. This book, you go into Tadvidi Paripatena. Yeah, so just Prabhupada says, Paripatena, I'm sorry. First surrender. So first accept. First, we have some faith, then we accept. Okay, yes, Sadhana Bhakti is the best of all paths. And now we're going to learn about devotional service, and we want to surrender to the path of devotional service. Prabhupada says, Tadvidi Paripatena. Pranipatena means you must find out an able teacher where you can surrender. So that's the first thing. We need to connect with a teacher. We need to connect with someone. In this verse or previous verses in this chapter, it's explained to have a realized soul. A realized soul is simply someone that's fully committed to understanding that they're not their body, that they're spirit soul, and there's some different examples that's given about a realized soul. Let's surrender. That's the most important thing to a teacher. So Prabhupada says, if we see a person that we know is more learned than us, right? Then we surrender. Just like, for example, you have many teachers that come on this platform, and there are many of you here that are so very learned. So we surrender to those persons to hear, to listen to. It's not like we have to have somebody that we think is like, oh, this person is, so unapproachable. That's what makes us surrender. No, the person needs to be really approachable, very approachable. And so we have people, so many exemplary devotees like that are very learned. Prabhupada says, you should go to a person where you can surrender. So for myself, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, when I was introduced to him, was the person that I knew immediately when I met him, physically met him, that I could surrender. Yes, this person I can trust. I can have faith. I can be safe. Yes, I can surrender to this person. And then Prabhupada says, and sevaya, not just take from the person, right? Sometimes we have teachers and we just want to get from them. Prabhupada said, no, not just take. We must give. We must give. So you should not just that you inquire. We do inquire. Questions are so important. We learned that in this chapter also. However, we want to give. We want to give service. We want to give. And so that's why I shared about Sahadev. Every day he's giving the service. Everyone here on this platform is giving service in some way or another. Just being here today, hearing this class is giving. You're giving. You're not just taking. You're wanting to hear, because hearing is the most important. Chanting and hearing, right, of the process of devotional service. So you must give. Prabhupada explains like this: just like if you purchase something, you must pay for it. Therefore, it's called sevaya. If you purchase something, you pay for it. You cannot pay by returning the value which is taught by the spiritual master. So we can't pay. We can't repay the spiritual master for what he's given to us. It's not possible. So this is what he's calling sevaya, right? It's something that when you do it, you don't know what you're going to get in return. You have no clue, no idea. You don't want anything in return. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he made this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful prayer to Srila Prabhupada. He said, dear Lord, whatever we need to be better servants for Srila Prabhupada's mission, let it happen or come to us. Whatever we need to have taken away to become pure in Srila Prabhupada's service, let it be taken away. Sevaya, whatever. Take it away, give it the Sevaya, giving the service to Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada goes on, dedicate your life for his service. You cannot pay what you have got to pay to a spiritual master. You cannot pay. Maharaj Parikshit had 7 days to live, right? He wasn't thinking of what he could pay to Sukadeva Goswami. He simply wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, hear about the glories and the sweetness of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada goes on, dedicate your life for his service. You cannot pay. What have you got to pay? And he says this twice, right? So Tadvidi Parapatena Pariprashena Sevaya. Therefore, the disciples' duty, our duty, is to be ready always to serve the spiritual master at any cost. That is the disciples' duty, Sevaya. And so when that devotee, Tulsi Manjari, gave me that verse, and I was taking that verse with me, she taught me how to write it on a what do you call it? Here in America, we say post-it. It's not really a post-it, but an index card. So I wrote it on an index card, and I would take it with me on Sankirtan to try to learn that verse. And she would each day give me a line, just one line of the verse each day. So as I learned that verse, I knew when His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Maharaj requested that I go to Africa, I knew, like, I couldn't say no. You know, when you learn these verses, you learn. This is, okay, I have to live by this. And so this Prabhupada says, the disciples' duty is to be ready always to serve the spiritual master at any cost. That is the disciples' duty, Sevaya. So we see even today that so many disciples are getting trained in this mood of service, how to serve the spiritual master, to do whatever is required, right? In Srila Prabhupada's mission, ultimately. Then Upadekshantite Jnanam, Jnanina Tattva Ha. He says, so real knowledge can be achieved in this process, Pranipata. Not that I can challenge, I can know, I've got so much education and degrees, I can understand what is God. There's no need of God. I am God. We're the controllers. So he says, these are all rascaldom. And I thought, yeah, I fit that at one point in my life. I was one of those rascals. And in some ways, probably still has some of that conditioning in my consciousness. So Prabhupada says, real thing is Tadvidi Parapatena, as Parikshit Maharaj, the emperor of the world. He's hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. And then he says, you have seen that picture in our Bhagavata? He's asking, newly published, how Parikshit Maharaj humbly asking and sitting before Sukadeva Goswami. So Bhagavata Pradhanaha. So Sukadeva Goswami is the chief Bhagavata. And then he concludes this little talk. He says there are 2 kinds of Bhagavata, and we know that, the person Bhagavata and the book Bhagavata. Then he gives this last example, just like when King Prithu Maharaj, when the Kumaras preached to him about transcendental knowledge, he very humbly submitted, my dear spiritual master, you have taught me so nice. I require to give you some dakshin. So we all know when we take initiation, we offer some dakshin to the guru. That's in a mood of reciprocation, just not that we can really pay the guru or we can give the guru anything, not really. The guru is giving us transcendental knowledge. And in a show of appreciation, we may give some dakshin. So now I'm going to move away from this a little bit. This is such a beautiful lecture of Srila Prabhupada about transcendental knowledge and about this mood of guru and disciple. And then, so now what is the effect for us once we accept the spiritual master? Once we accept that sadhana bhakti is the best of all paths? Once we accept that we want to engage in service, in devotional service. So what's the effect of having this knowledge? How does it benefit us? So Krishna, he gives us 4 analogies to answer this question. Krishna himself. He says, first, knowledge as fire, knowledge like fire. And he explains that we accumulate karma during our material life, and life after life, we're accumulating karma. And we're also cultivating desires, life after life after life. And some of those are either pious desires we're developing, or sinful. In some cases, those conditioned souls that are not yet aware, that their whole life is meant to serve the Lord. They may engage in some sinful activities. Sometimes even when we have some knowledge, we may still engage in sinful activities. So here Prabhupada is explaining, when the actions are pious or sinful, then we get reactions. And we all know this. Yeah, for every action, there's some reaction. And nobody can escape them. No one can escape our, we might think, I might think I can escape getting reaction for sinful activities, but no, that's not how it works. Once we have transcendental knowledge, then we are responsible for our action. So the glory of transcendental knowledge is that it can burn up all reactions. And then Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita, right? So many of what Prabhupada says, he often quotes the Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita 437, if you can pull that up real quick, 437. Okay, it's not coming up. Okay, so 437 is the fire of knowledge burns to ashes all reactions to material activities. That's a part of that verse, and that whole verse, the Sanskrit scholars that are on this verse, as a blazing fire turns fire to ashes, or Arjuna. So this is fire of knowledge burns to ashes all material reactions. So then how do we understand this? Transcendental knowledge can burn up all the reactions and that we have from all sinful activities. So therefore, that knowledge that we received, that sadhana bhakti, is the best of all paths that was given to the sages, is important for us, for everyone in this world, because from that we will receive transcendental knowledge. When we accept the path of bhakti, we will automatically start receiving transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master. And that knowledge, like fire, will burn up all the reactions from our previous sinful activities and will only increase our good fortune. So this is one of the benefits of transcendental knowledge. Another benefit, or another part of this analogy that Prabhupada gives, is transcendental knowledge as a boat. And transcendental knowledge is like a boat, right? And we all hear the statement, I'm on the boat, sometimes when we may not be as pure as we would want to be. We often would say, or I might say, oh, but I'm on the boat. I'm on the boat of this transcendental knowledge. So this material world is an ocean of birth and death, an ocean, right? We're continuously taking birth and we're dying, and that's the process. That's the reason Maharaj Pariksit wanted to ask all those questions, because he wants to understand what happens at the time of death. So if a person falls into the ocean, then he can't get out of it alone, right? No one can, no matter how skilled a person might be. I remember having a pastime like that down at the beach. I saw a picture recently of devotees chanting at the beach in Ghana. And it brought back memories of me being there at that beach. And just really, I was there actually with our spiritual master and other devotees. And I remember going into the water, and because I love the water, love the sand, love the sun, love everything about water. And yeah, I was swimming because I know how to swim, because I took birth in an island. And so I was swimming, and then there was this little girl that was trying to come with me. And I was saying, no, 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 just, I'm swimming. And then I want to swim. I just want to swim. But she was holding on to me. And so I couldn't really, really swim. And so I was walking with her, just kind of teaching her how to do this paddle, how to do the paddle. And then the water floor changed. And the next thing I knew, we were both underwater. And she was holding on to me so tight. And I was like, let go, Gifty, let go. And she wouldn't let go. And we're under the water. And I was like, okay. And just when I said, all right, this is it, Krishna, I guess this is the way we're coming to you. And somebody came from nowhere, I don't know who, and pulled us apart under the water. I mean, the bubbles were already coming up and everything, pulled us out of this water and swam with both of us. I don't know up to today how that person did that. Swam and brought us both on the shore. And I remember coming on the shore and somebody pumping the water out of us. It was quite an experience. So when I look at that picture, when I saw that picture of the devotees, chanting, I was thinking, you don't know who's at that beach. You have no idea. When you're chanting like that, you don't know how many wonderful souls that you see and you don't see that's there on that beach. So yeah, that's a reminder. So the material world is like an ocean of birth and death. We could die at any moment, right? And if you're not as a good swimmer, even though I thought I was a good swimmer, I couldn't get her to let go. So what can we do, right? But if we get, Prabhupada says, but if we get the help of a well-built boat, then we can get saved from this drowning. So we get the help from the well-built boat, the spiritual master. And the spiritual master helps us, right? This is the well-built boat. This is Srila Prabhupada. This is Maharaj Pariksit. This is all these great devotees. This is our own spiritual teachers that are helping us. They're the boat. And so Krishna says again in Bhagavad Gita in 436, that transcendental knowledge is like the boat that can help you to cross over the material ocean of omniscience. This transcendental knowledge is given by someone. It's given to us. It's passed down from the Lord himself. And then it's being passed down. So Prabhupada says, even if, and that really beautiful verse that get tossed around a lot, and we could make a whole class out of it, this Apichet Chiro verse. That's in Bhagavad Gita 436. Apichet Ashi Prabhyaha. I know, what's his name is here, Varaha Prabhu, and he's listening to me really, what do you call this? There's a word I'm thinking. Anyway, for lack of a better word, I'll use an American word. He's listening to me mess up the Sanskrit. Because, I never could get to really, now I'm taking Sanskrit classes, but I couldn't get to really, really learn Sanskrit because right after, I was doing that Sankirtan in New York, and then Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, our revered Guru Maharaj, asked me to go to Africa. So then I had to cut the classes and I couldn't really learn so many verses. And so now I struggle sometimes with the Sanskrit, but now in my older years where I'm not as listening with rapt attention, when I'm not as, when I can have more time, where I don't have to do as many physical services, now I'm taking Sanskrit classes and I'm so excited. So Apichet Ashi Prabhyaha, Prabhyaha. So even if you're considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in a boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So that's this beautiful, beautiful verse. Apichet Ashi Papebhya, Sarvebhya, Papakritamaha. If you are considered, you will be able to cross over. So a stay in the material world, we want to remind ourselves of that, is caused by material desires, caused by our material desires. And the root cause of material desires, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, is ignorance. Ignorance, forgetfulness of the truth, forgetfulness that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. So transcendental knowledge brings back our memory, our lost memory. It revives our lost memory of being a servant of Krishna. So when we're on this boat of knowledge, of transcendental knowledge, we will start remembering that we are servants of Krishna. Then we can immediately cross over the ocean of birth and death. Immediately. So I'm thinking on Sahadev to do today. What Sahadev Prabhu is doing or even not just Sahadev, there's the devotees that are teaching. I mean, just so amazing. They're teaching Srimad Bhagavatam classes there in Ghana. It's just so beautiful when I think of how evolved just the involvement service devotees have become. So that they have opened like a school where, even though it's an online school, I'm guessing, where they're teaching Sastra every single day. And I see that, I get that in my little inbox. I get all of Vaharaha stuff. And I see how glorious it is to be committed, to teaching this knowledge. And so this transcendental knowledge, it revives our lost memory. And for devotees to be committed to do that, right? So Sahadev is committed to bringing, to supporting those persons that are themselves also giving this transcendental knowledge. So he's committed to assisting those, and he himself is giving this transcendental knowledge. So this is the glory of receiving transcendental knowledge, the glory of being on the boat, the glory of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, the glory of Prabhupada's servants' mercy on us, the glory of having a spiritual teacher being committed to the path of sadhana bhakti. Prabhupada then goes on to talk about that the next analogy he gives is knowledge as a torchlight. Torchlight. I saw a little thing the other day. This person was commenting, this lady, she was like kind of wondering, she's a traveler. She travels for her job. And she was saying that in the last 6 months of traveling, she normally stays in hotels. And she's never seen this before, where in the hotel, usually they have in the hotels in America a spiritual book, usually it's the Bible. But by Sheshaka Prabhu, he has a whole program of putting the Bhagavad Gita in the hotels. I think it's mostly in California. It's not all over. So all over the country, the Bibles are definitely in the hotels. But what she noticed recently is there's a torchlight that's being put in the hotels. She was wondering, why is that? She hadn't noticed that before. So she was speaking about this and wondering, she stays in many different hotels, and now she's seeing these torchlight. And then she conjured up that it must be that there's going to be some challenges, some electrical, different types of challenges. And so that's why they're putting these torchlights. Sure enough, we see in America now, the last few days, there's no electricity in many places. There's storms that's blowing out everything. And, so these are battery operated torchlight, right? So here, Prabhupada says knowledge is the real torchlight. So we can get those temporary torchlight to, see for some short time. But when we have knowledge, when we're in a dark room, a dark place, because of whatever is happening in the world, whatever the craziness is in the world, the torchlight of knowledge is that we have the holy names of the Lord. That's our torchlight of knowledge. It's within us, and we can always remember to call in the Lord's holy name. And Prabhupada says that compared to our blissful eternal existence, and life in the material world is groping around the darkness. And everyone is trying to figure ways of getting light in the darkness. But most people they don't have this knowledge. And that's why those of you that are giving this knowledge to others is so very important, because people are groping. Prabhupada used this word groping. They're groping in darkness, in ignorance of our constitutional position. And unless we have a teacher, unless we become like Marge Burkshit, and we realize that we don't know when we're going to die, unless we accept this process of sadhana bhakti, unless we're faithful, then this darkness will always be there. Prabhupada then talks about it's not easy to come out of this darkness. And yes, even as devotees, we sometimes I might go back into the darkness in some way or another. he says what we need is this torch light, this illuminating lamp of knowledge. That's how the importance of transcendental knowledge. This is one of the importance. So for devotees, we're constantly engaged in loving devotional service to the Lord, constantly engaged, because because this knowledge makes it easy. We're engaged in hearing devotional service, right? This transcendental hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then Krishna himself, the Lord himself, will destroy the ignorance, he himself. And so he tells us that, he promises us that. And this is another verse in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 10, chapter 10, verse 11. In the Gita, Prabhupada tells us again, these verses are really key to learn, because these verses help us to understand why this transcendental knowledge is so important in our lives. And it helps us to give it to others, helps us to understand why we are giving it to others. So this 10:11, chapter 10, text 11, is this verse explains, to show them, those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So that's the real disease of the people in Kali Yuga, in material life, that there is a darkness that most people are in because of ignorance. And we can understand this, Tamas, we can understand how this ignorance, how it blinds us in so many ways. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on tour in South India, there's this story, we hear it often, how he met this Brahmana, and this Brahmana was engrossed in reading Bhagavad Gita. And while he was reading Bhagavad Gita, tears were gliding down his cheeks. And he was in ecstasy reading Bhagavad Gita. And when Lord Chaitanya asked the Brahmana why he was crying, the Brahmana said, whenever I sit down to read the Gita, when I read the Gita, the form of Lord Krishna as Parthasarati, everybody loves that picture, Parthasarati, right? That picture comes in my heart. And we remember that Brahmana was blind. So he was seeing that internally. So this light of knowledge, it comes to us. It's this bright light is an internal light that awakens our consciousness. And it awakens our consciousness into giving to others. Firstly, giving to ourselves by us hearing and applying it in our own lives, and then giving to others, removing this ignorance, this blindness from our own lives. So as soon as I see the form, as soon as we see the form, I immediately remember how the Lord is especially kind to his devotees. So this was this Brahmana's response. As soon as he sees this form of the Lord, Parthasarati, then he remembers Krishna is Bhaktavatsal. He's so kind to all of us. And that makes him cry. That makes him cry. And Prabhupada quotes this beautiful verse from the Upanishads. And Prabhupada says, only those great souls, Yashya Deve Parabhaktir, Yata Deve Tata Guru. He says, only those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master, both the Lord and the spiritual master, all the imports of Vedic knowledge are automatically revealed. So this is the mercy we've received from Srila Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya was extremely pleased. He was so happy seeing the devotion of this Brahmana. And he told him that he had perfected his life. He had perfected his reading of the Bhagavad Gita. So in the same way, as we read these pastimes, as we hear these pastimes that we're reading now, they're so beautiful, and they have so much instructive knowledge for all of us. It's just to visualize the sages. Just this one little pastime of the sages requesting Sutta Goswami, tell us more, tell us more, tell me more, tell me more. You know, some of us, I know for myself, sometimes You know, there's so many things going on in the world today that's just really, really crazy. I mean, I know all of us know about the, you know, the people that lost their lives under the ocean. And so at a point, you know, I didn't know so much of what was going on. And somebody mentioned it to me. And I was like, really? Tell me more. Tell me more. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to know more. But these sages, they're wanting to know more about the Lord and Lord's transcendental abode. They want to learn more about the relationships that's going on in terms of those personalities that are involved in getting knowledge about the Lord, how they're living it. These sages, this is what their curiosity. So my curiosity sometimes is based on what's going on in the mature world. And to some degree, that's my form of ignorance. And to some degree, that's the way that I am aware. And then I have to pray to the Lord, please, please remove this ignorance, remove this blindness. And then the last one is knowledge as, I'm sorry, there's two more, and I'll do this real quick because I think we are at the time. Knowledge as a sword, knowledge as a sword. I had a friend, we were doing these workshops in Mayapur, and I have a friend, he's a brahmachari actually, and he's just so fired up. Partha, his name is Party. He's so fired up. He's just always enthusiastic, eager to learn, and you know. And so we were all requested to give. Well, at that time, we were working on devotee care, and we were requested to do these workshops. And he was so excited, and he had this workshop, and the name of it is "Knowledge as a Sword," and he was so excited about presenting that workshop. Mainly, he was excited about the sword part, because he was like a Chechen type person, and he had such value with the sword, with this idea of knowledge as a sword. And so when he was explaining to us how his workshop would develop, I was smiling, constantly smiling, because he referenced the sword. Usually he would reference the sword. So Prabhupada gives this example that when a plant grows, that there's many weeds that grow around it. And they take the water, they take the nutrients. We then need a sword to remove all the unwanted weeds, right? Of course, now we have so many amazing technology. Everything still has that basic foundation. It has to have some sharpness to it. Otherwise, the plant will choke to death. So it's like that with us. We need that sword. Palaka, Hare Krishna. Is that Palaka? May I ask which Palaka that is? Palaka, would you be willing to show?
It's on Palaka.
Oh my goodness. Whoa. Wow. I can't believe this. Palaka Prabhu, how did you ever get some time to be on a class?
Oh, yeah. I'm multitasking.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
But I was so glad I saw your name come up, and all your realizations have been so fantastic. It's so nice to see you and explain this Bhagavatam verse. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. When I think of you, I think of one of those persons that's always engaged 24/7, either with your
trying to be like you,
with your wife, with your job, with your, with your sangha, with your, like somebody that's understanding Krishna's time. I'm sorry, what did you say, Prabhu?
Thank you.
Saha, you said something?
I said Palaka Prabhu is speaking Bhagavatam tomorrow.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Tomorrow is Tuesday. I may be able to be here. All right. Thank you. And thanks for sharing that, Prabhu. So yes, the sword of transcendental knowledge can come to our rescue. And okay, so he starts a new chapter tomorrow.
Yes.
Palaka. Beautiful. Yes. That's where the sages gonna really get into it, right? They start learning. So Krishna, he urges us to use the sharp sword to cut all the weeds of material desires and to understand our real position. This way we can get ultimate perfection. And then Krishna explains, you know, that doubts might come, but the sword to remove the doubts, that doubts which comes in the heart out of ignorance will be slashed by a weapon of knowledge. That's Gita 4:42. That's another verse that's important for us. And then the last one, this is the last one. The last one is transcendental knowledge keeps Maya away. And I think that one is real important because I'm guessing, I don't know about everyone, but I know that I am aware of how Maya is around all the time. I'm personally aware. One time recently, we have a group, and so the question was asked, what is a distraction in your bhakti? What's something that you find that you do that is a distraction? And I was thinking about that question, and then I was realizing, yeah, for me, one distraction that is a great distraction that can be a great distraction is wanting to know what's going on in the material world, you know, like being aware of the material activities of the world. It can be, it doesn't always have to be, it can be used in Krishna's service for sure. However, it can be a distraction when we get so absorbed that we just need to be on YouTube all the time, or whoever, or those that might read newspapers or whatever, however means we get our what's going on in the world today, because it's always, and it's never really good news. That's the thing. It's always like steeped in ignorance, what's going on in the world, or steeped in people wanting to be controllers of the world. That's always the foundation, usually, in most cases, unless, of course, unless we're absorbed in spiritual things. So when we have knowledge, when we have transcendental knowledge, then our faith will be strong, and Maya won't be able to affect us. Maya is actually a servant, as we know. She's a servant of Krishna, and she has a great role to play. So she can be our helper. She really can help us. Maya can help us. She doesn't always have to let it be. It doesn't have to, we don't have to make the choices always to let her be a distraction, distract us from Krishna. No, we can actually engage Maya in helping us to serve Krishna. So the way we do that is we read. Prabhupada emphasizes reading, reading the Bhagavatam, hearing from the scriptures, and of course, giving others. So Krishna himself, he glorifies transcendental knowledge. He says, in this world, there's nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. This is from Gita. Again, this is all in the 4th chapter of Gita. This knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. In our group, we were talking about mystical, the mystics, we're exploring that. And so this knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And a person who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within him or herself in due course of time. And I love how Prabhupada emphasizes that, in due course of time. So it's not that we think it's not that it will happen just like tomorrow, although it might happen like that for some of you. For some, it might require some more work, you know, engaging in sadhana bhakti, and just accepting and tolerating on the onslaughts that comes from material energy, and just seeing all of those challenges that we may experience as ways that we can engage deeper in our devotional service. So I'm going to close here and just bring us back to the beauty of this verse. It's a small verse. It's power-packed. There's so many ways we can talk about transcendental knowledge, and so many ways we can express our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, to our spiritual masters, for giving us a glimpse of what transcendental knowledge is all about. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Hari Hari. Okay.
Thank you so much, as always, Mother Vrajalila, for such wonderful, beautiful elucidation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I have quite a few number of questions because most of what you were talking about had to deal with the importance of people listening or hearing the Bhagavatam and hearing from the right source. So we'll go to Kusha Prabhu and then I'll later have the opportunity to ask my question. Kusha Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, more than my humble obeisances.
Kusha, I miss
Yes.
you.
I came to disturb a bit today. Hare
Yes.
Krishna. I
I
have a
go.
question. My question is on Maya and material wealth.
Yes.
Like when someone loses his material wealth or his children or his relations, he understood he's not in control of anything in life. Sometimes he becomes humble. But when one falls into Maya, we don't have such realization that Maya is an energy of Krishna that makes us to know we're not God, we have no power. We don't become humble. Instead, we say he falls into Maya. So how can we see Maya as submission to the will of Krishna?
So if I heard you correctly, Kusha Prabhu, when people have wealth and it's taken away, it can make them humble.
Yes.
However, oftentimes when people get that lesson, they may not become humble. They may engage more in Maya. Is that? I just want to make sure
No,
I got the right question.
the question is when we lose our wealth or our beloved children or parents, we become humble.
Yes.
We know that we're not the controller of anything in life. But
Yes.
when we fall into Maya, we don't become humble. To practice devotional service, on the contrary, we go away finally. It's not being humble.
Yes. And
Kusha Prabhu, if I may ask, what do you mean by when we fall into Maya?
When a devotee falls into Maya, for example, brahmachari or sannyasi, or we're having difficulties in my devotional service,
Okay.
instead of practicing more devotional service, people used to elope and stop practicing entirely, instead of being humble to really engage in devotional service. Like when you lose your wealth,
Okay.
you know you don't have anything, you're not in control of anything in life. But when we have difficulties in devotional service, why do we go away completely instead of being humble to practice devotional service?
Okay, I hope Mother Raj, you get his question now.
yeah, I did. Absolutely. Thank you, Kusha. Thank you so much. I always love your questions. So I'm going to relate this back to my own self. Given that I am always still in Maya, and given that when Maya overcome me, how do I respond? Do I respond favorably and take shelter of Krishna, or do I not? Do I not take shelter of Krishna? Do I go more into Maya? So we are challenged in so many ways as devotees. You know, we're challenged constantly with doubts that may come up in so many ways, or as you said, we may get challenged by sometimes things get taken away. And so let's look at that. In my own life, you know, I have had, let's say, in relationships with devotees, I have had the care of devotees taken away. That's very important to me, to be cared for by the devotees. I've had that taken away. And so sometimes, you know, of course, as you know, everything is, when something is taken away and we react, we always have two different ways we can react. So we can react fully with our false ego, or we can react with transcendental knowledge, as you know, Kusha. And so I see in my own life how sometimes my false ego like becomes stronger than my transcendental knowledge. I see that in my own life. Now, does it take me away from a devotional service? No, not fully away from devotional service. I may engage in devotional service in a different way. For example, let's say you're a manager, and let's say that's taken away, in material life or in spiritual life. Let's say that role of being a manager is taken away by Krishna somehow. That's an arrangement. And let's say, and so there's a way that, and so if we respond from false ego and just not want to be around the temple, not want to be around the devotees, not want to take shelter, of the deities, that's a false ego way of reacting. And sometimes, that can be there. And then people might isolate, right? They isolate, they go away. Go away may mean that they go away to engage with a different group of devotees. It may mean that they engage in devotional service in a different way, because there's 9 different ways we can engage in devotional service. So it's not limited to just what someone's perception might be, just this, one way. And so oftentimes what I say is it's between that person and Krishna, how they're responding. If they're responding to false ego, then over some time, they will also get some realization. Because, when we respond with false ego, we become miserable, really. We become miserable after some time because we have knowledge, right? If you got even if we just Bhakta first day of Krishna consciousness, chant Hare Krishna, and remember, Krishna is God. Even if that's it, but the Bhakta comes day one, that's transcendental knowledge that they got. So when they go away, they may get absorbed. It might be for some time in Maya, but ultimately that knowledge is there. Transcendental knowledge is not lost. So at some point, they will come back to that realization at some point. So in my own life, I have seen in my own case, I might, if something is not going the way I think it's supposed to go, according to my perception, I might isolate. But that doesn't mean I'm not engaging in devotional service. And so, however, I have to really work internally on why I might have chosen to isolate. Why did I make that choice? As opposed to, be more involved, giving more, sharing more, making myself more available. That's an internal, that's something internal that I might have to process, might have to work on, pray more, chant more, hear more, take more shelter of devotees that maybe I do understand or do reciprocate, with me like that. So Krishna consciousness is so personal. It's so personal. I think one of the ways we get caught is we kind of tend to, put devotees in, well, firstly, we label devotees. Oh, they're good devotees. They're not a good devotee. They're advanced. They're not advanced. You know what I mean? And then we lose some of the deeper connection that we can have, because we can learn from everyone. That's our philosophy, right? We can learn from everyone. We can learn from people that are in Maya, that are choosing material energy. We can learn from them. Sometimes, when devotees choose material energy, they are usually really sad. They're usually, they may externally appear to be happy, but internally they're very sad because they know better. They know better. So Krishna consciousness is all about when things are going not in the way we want them to go, and to still, do the things that will please our spiritual master. And that's a lesson I personally am still learning. So I'm not in a position really to, judge or criticize or anyone, because, I'm learning that lesson myself. I hope that's helpful.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the answer. And
Thank you, Mother. Thank you.
question.
Hari Haribol.
Anyone else with a question, comment, realization? Mother, we've heard and we've been told several times that the guru must examine the the devotee before the guru accepts the devotee as the disciple. Likewise, the disciple must also examine the guru to ascertain that, yes, this person can take me back home, back to Godhead, before he accepts such a person as a guru. Now, the question is, how does an aspiring disciple undertake this step of examining someone to be his guru without making offenses? That you examine whether this person is competent enough to take me back home, back to Godhead, because there is a statement made here by Srila Prabhupada in Chaitanya Charitamrita. No, actually, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. Let me see if I can put it up here. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3, Text 46. And in the purport, it's quite a lengthy purport. Srila Prabhupada states that one who thinks that the worshipable deity in the temple is made of wood or stone, one who sees a Vaishnava guru as an ordinary human being, or one who materially conceives of a Vaishnava as belonging to a particular caste is Naraki, a resident of hell. So if someone accepts outright that this is a Vaishnava guru, he is excellent, then why the need for such an aspiring disciple to understudy that guru, if that guru is going to be able to take him back home, back to Godhead? How do we reconcile the examination and avoiding being a resident of hell? Hare Krishna.
Yes, thank you, Saha. As always, I appreciate your question. You, Kusha, you're always very insightful and so wonderful. And something that, I listen to, I call him Srimad Bhagavatam Keshava Maharaj. Of course, he's more than Srimad Bhagavatam. He's all the scriptures, but, anyway, he gives a lot of, he illuminates the scriptures in ways that can connect with me and how I think. And one of the things I learned from him recently, although I've heard this from my guru many times, but it got a little bit illuminated this time, is Srila Prabhupada says many different things at different times, right? So we always got to take things in context. Okay, so that's something that, just maybe like I tuned into that and I'm like, yeah, let me look at something and see how in different ways Prabhupada is maybe referring to that, whatever statement he made and what context he might be referring to it. And of course, we studied that course, so we know Prabhupada sometimes says things. However, in this case, my understanding is related to this particular verse that we're studying about transcendental knowledge. Prabhupada emphasized so much not hearing that what happens when we don't hear from a Vaishnava guru. He emphasized a lot about, in India, how people, take shelter of so many different gurus that are doing these Bhagavad saptas. They're speaking Bhagavatam sometimes for days and days, right? But however, they're not really authorized, by they're not in Guru Parampara, and they're not authorized to speak Srimad Bhagavatam. He speaks a lot about that in this class as I was sharing. So my understanding is a Vaishnava guru is in the line of disciplic succession, and everyone, we as conditioned souls, we don't really know, who's a self-realized person because we're conditioned. We're in a conditioned state. So we don't know. We ourselves, we don't know. However, we do know, if we take to the path of bhakti, that to hear, for us to hear, it must be done in a specific way. We need to hear in disciplic succession, and we need to hear from those persons that have passed down the transcendental knowledge. When we go outside of that, for example, when we go to India, we see many devotees, that they may have been devotees of Krishna. I mean, they may have been Vaishnava devotees, devotees of Krishna, but they go to different gurus to hear, right? And those gurus might not be in the Vaishnava line. They might not be in the civic succession. So we need to be able to be very clear who we're hearing from. Are we hearing from a person that's in the civic succession, or are we hearing from some, like, for example, in my own life, I had a guru before I actually met my spiritual master, and he was really, he's very worshipable. His name is Swami Muktananda, and I learned so much from him about Lord Shiva. I was worshiping Lord Shiva. I was chanting Om Namah Shivaya Namaha every single day. But, it wasn't that he wasn't bona fide on his path. It's just that he's not bona fide in terms of being a Vaishnava guru, in terms of giving us transcendental knowledge about the Lord. So when I met my guru, when I met Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I didn't know, know in terms of intellectually, spiritually know that he was a realized soul or not. It didn't matter. It didn't really matter. What mattered was the knowledge that he was giving me. That knowledge, that transcendental knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who I learned was the master of Lord Shiva, who I learned Shiva worship. That was what was important. That was important. So when we say worship a Vaishnava guru, when I hear Prabhupada speak about worshiping a Vaishnava guru, it's important to be clear when people are outside of the paradigm of bhakti, transcendental knowledge, outside of that. Within bhakti, we have many different gurus, many, right? And they're teaching bhakti. They may have a different mood in how they present bhakti, but it's not like they're not presenting bhakti. So we just got to be careful. We also, so much of guru-disciple relationship is based on the mood of the guru. For me, the mood of my spiritual master fit the mood that I could just be a disciple that could listen, and I could, just take instructions. So it's important to know the mood of the guru. So there's some traditions of bhakti, there's some other sampradayas where the mood is different. It's a different mood. And that we got to be clear about. Now, once we go out of the four sampradayas, once we go out of the we need to be clear on that. We need to be clear on who's a Vaishnava guru and who's not a Vaishnava guru. Like I was saying, Prabhupada emphasized that a lot in this lecture, because he emphasized that because transcendental knowledge is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and that we need to be clear who passes it down. Does that, I don't know if that helps, Saha.
Yes, it does help, but I know Srila Prabhupada was, I wouldn't say liberal per se, but he was somebody who really appreciated all sorts of bona fide religions. And so he actually was saying that one could be in their religion or whatever and still study the Veda scriptures and add on to whatever they're practicing. They will become better Christians, they'll become better Muslims, not necessarily becoming and dressing like Hare Krishna person. But if any guru outside of the Vaishnava Sampradaya is not bona fide, then how do those religions not belonging to any of the four bona fide Sampradayas fit into helping the practitioners realize God? Because there is a verse I found here in, I think, in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me see if I can put it up here. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 24, text 330. Srila Prabhupada gave a very, very lengthy, elaborate, strong purport. But what caught my eye here is what I've highlighted. When one has attained the topmost position of Mahabhagavat, he is to be accepted as the guru and worshipped exactly like Hari, the personality of Godhead. Only such a person is eligible to occupy the post of a guru. However, if one is highly qualified but is not a Vaishnava, he cannot be accepted as a guru. So no matter how qualified a person is, if he's not a Vaishnava, he should not be accepted as a guru. And that kind of threw me off a little bit. If you may shed a little bit light on that, please.
Okay, I'll share my realization and then I'll request some of the other devotees at this time if they like, because that's a nice, beautiful point to bring out. So yes, okay, we clarified that point about Vaishnava guru as opposed to pseudo gurus in other traditions. Now, a few thoughts I have that is coming up for me on that is, first of all, Krishna, Krishna is worshipped in different ways. What is that? Paramatmati, Brahmamati. He's worshipped as Brahman, he's worshipped, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's known in different ways. So when Prabhupada is speaking about guru in Vaishnava, in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, Vaishnava line, he's speaking about those that are in the succession from the Supreme Lord. And so when I'm understanding where he's saying that if they're in some other tradition, right? Yeah, they may not be, don't call them a guru, using the terminology guru in Vaishnava tradition. They're not gurus as in the Vaishnava tradition. Now, that's a word, guru, that today is being loosely used. So Prabhupada is making a distinction. Okay, Mahabhagavad devotees, they are gurus in the Vaishnava tradition. Don't confuse from another tradition a Mahabhagavad devotee that's a Vaishnava in the disciplic succession. Don't confuse them. When we hear the word guru means teacher, right? So there certainly are teachers in different traditions, just like in the Christian tradition. There's a beautiful story, a beautiful pastime of our teacher, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. He used to take us at a point when we started the institute, because many of the devotees were Christians. So he would take the devotees to different churches. We would all go to different churches. And he would speak in these churches. He would stand on the pulpit and preach and teach. And I remember there's a church that's in Harrisburg. There's a church in Harrisburg, right where you live, Sahadev. And there was a pastor that became really, really favorable after he heard our Guru Maharaj speak. And he would invite him to come. Reverend Massey, his name was. Reverend Massey. He would invite him to come, and we would come to this church. We didn't live in this area, we lived in DC. He became so favorable that he wanted to give up his church and he wanted to take initiation. He wanted to be a disciple. And our Guru Maharaj told him, no, don't do that. He said, you can make more of a difference where you are. You can speak from the Vaishnava tradition in a way that Christians can hear it. And because so much is based on externals, you being a pastor in the church is very significant, very important. And we need not that you become necessarily an initiated disciple, even though he would have initiated him. He said, but more important is that you remain in that external capacity and give Krishna consciousness. So somebody could say, well, was Reverend Massey a guru? Was he a teacher for his people, for the people that came? Yes, he was. He was. And was he in the line of the Vaishnava tradition? Well, no one would have known that he was, because he was taking instruction from our guru. So he was in the line. So it's not like Krishna consciousness is black and white. It's not like it's this way or that way or that way. And we saw that our Guru Maharaj was so variegated and so amazing. He taught us in so many ways how to engage and accept people in their different capacities. Now, should we confuse Reverend Massey as a Mahabhagwat in the Vaishnava tradition? No, because he's learning. He's learning and he's growing. He's eager. He has this eagerness, like the Kahard boys, they had so much eagerness to hear from Nanda Maharaj. When Nanda Maharaj came back from being captured by Varuna, they're all eager. So yeah, he had an eagerness to hear, but that we shouldn't confuse that with him being a Mahabhagwat Vaishnava devotee. But still, loosely using that word, guru, he was a teacher for his congregation. And then he went on and took on a church in Washington, D.C. and became a cardinal and whatever. And we still have connection with some of his, some of the people that I'm not sure what the word is now, I forgot, haven't been in that association for a while. But Yashoda Mai actually keeps in contact and still does programs with some of his congregation. So these relationships,
Like an Pandit does also, like an Pandit program.
Yeah. Okay. So these relationships are important, and it's nice that Jagannath is going to share because he comes from a Christian tradition. But just to clarify that word of guru, when Prabhupada is speaking there in that context, he's speaking about don't confuse other persons in different tradition that Prabhupada is so sharp. That word would be used really loosely as it is being used now. Gurus, everybody's a guru now, everybody. So he said, don't confuse that with a Mahabhagwat devotee. But at the same time, and simultaneously, Chinta Beda Beda Tattva, we appreciate everyone in whatever their tradition might be. And we appreciate that they may be teachers. They just don't have this transcendental knowledge. Okay. Jagannath Prabhu?
Well, thank you so much, Mother. But does anyone have something to say? I don't know whether ISKCON today still does this regional geographical limitations or demarcations for gurus accepting disciples, or gurus can accept the disciples worldwide. There was a time the gurus were like limited to their geographical location.
No, that's been removed. That was removed a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, because the zonal acharyas, they were called.
The zonal.
Zonal acharyas. You can only take initiation.
So Prabhupada condemns it in this purport that I put up here.
Yeah.
That the guru should not be limited to any particular zone.
Yeah, no, because guru is from the heart.
Yeah.
The relationship from the disciple and guru is a heart connection. I thought I had a heart connection with my guru, who was a teacher for me of learning about Lord Shiva. But however, when I met Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, I knew I was safe. I knew, like, wow, I'm safe. He's gonna guide me. safely. He's going to keep me on this boat. He's going to teach me how to be on this boat. So yeah, it's a heart connection. It's someone you can trust. It's someone you can, if they ask you whatever, if they tell you to, you know, jump through something that's so small, you'll do it no matter what it is. So yeah, it's a heart connection. Guru.
All right.
It's not external. It's not external.
Thank you so much, Mother, for answering all my crazy but pertinent questions.
No, thank you. And the nice thing is that, like, for example, I speak now about SB Keshava Maharaj. For me, he's like an expansion of my guru. You know what I mean? When I hear him, I'm like I'm actually hearing some of the things my gurus say. And then I'm like reminded, oh yeah, my Guru Maharaj, he would say, like, he spoke like that. So, but my heart is how my Guru Maharaj taught me, that I can hear from others. So yeah, this is my understanding. There's a Varaha on here, and you said Jagannath Pandit might want to share something.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'm opening up to devotees. Please share your realizations. It's not questions, it's realizations. Share your reflections.
Yeah, please. Sorry, I heard some call here. Anyone with realizations, comments, please, you may do that. Mother, while we wait for people to ask or speak, our gurus are capable of giving us Prema Bhakti of Shri Krishna, but they don't usually do that as a matter of we are like they expect us to perform sadhana, and then the sadhana will slowly but steadily purify us, and then we come to a level where Krishna Prema could be assessed and attained. They do not just out of mercy, like Kripa, give us Krishna, even though they can, but they don't usually do that. They expect us to perform sadhana bhakti. And in order for us to perform sadhana bhakti, to become relevant in Krishna's devotion, it has to be both the spiritual master being potent and the disciple also being fertile. Now, if the spiritual master is potent and the disciple is fertile, then there can be reproduction. But Srila Prabhupada said something in Chaitanya Charitamrita in regards to Haridas Thakur, when Haridas Thakur was tempted by the prostitute, and Haridas Thakur actually transformed the prostitute to become a devotee. Srila Prabhupada said something, I'll put it up here, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Lila chapter 3, text 143. It's quite a short text and purport. Seeing the sublime character of the prostitute, everyone was astonished. Everyone glorified the influence of Haridas Thakur and offered him obeisances. Purport, it is said, Falena pari chiyate. One is recognized by the result of his actions. In Vaishnava society, there are many types of Vaishnavas. Some of them are called Goswamis. Some are called Swamis. Some are Prabhus, and some are Prabhupada. One is not recognized, however, simply by such a name. A spiritual master is recognized. This is where my question is coming from. A spiritual master is recognized as an actual guru when it is seen that he has changed the character of his disciples. So a ghost and Haridas could actually change the character of the professional prostitute. But there are some disciples that, because they are not fertile enough, the spiritual master will not forcibly change their character. And when that happens, do we then consider the spiritual master to be ineffective and as such not a bona fide spiritual master? Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari. Wow. This thank you, Saha. Again, another insightful question and I'm still opening it up for other senior devotees and any devotee that have some realizations about Sahadev's question. So potency and fertility, that's what I heard. Disciples may not be fertile to receive the potency from the spiritual master, the mercy from the spiritual master, because they haven't watered the seed of bhakti, right? So in the case of Haridas Thakur and the prostitute, she actually got the seed watered. Why? Because he was chanting the holy names of the Lord. She was hearing the chanting. He was intentional in making sure that she was chanting the holy names of the Lord. So the holy names of the Lord is not different from the Lord himself. So therefore, she became fertile by hearing and chanting, by chanting and just hearing, the name, hearing the holy names. Krishna became present. Krishna opened her heart and Krishna reminded her of who she really is. Now we all have that. We've all been given, that opportunity. Now, whether or not we take shelter of that opportunity is up to us. So as you said so nicely, Saha, we may not be fertile because we're not watering the seed, which is that's planted there in us. It's planted. We are parts and parcels of Krishna, so we may not be watering the seed. So that's our responsibility. If we're not taking shelter of sadhana, as you mentioned, the process of what helps us to remember that we're servants of Krishna, then no, it won't fructify. We won't receive that mercy. We won't receive that connection because we got to water it, right? We got to hear, we got to chant. And it's not something we talk about. It's action. It's action. Bhakti Tirthamara speak about love in action. Love is prema. Love is connection. So that prema comes from action. Prema is doing something, right? Krishna is not just saying to the Kahart boys and Kahart girls, oh, you just love me, just love me. He's always acting. He's always doing something. He's always performing activities that makes them love him. That their connection, they're falling in love always with him because of the things that he does. So similarly, the disciple is the responsibility is to do something, is to act, is to really act and show, that they want that connection. So I see Bhakta Hassan, who I met personally. Yay! He has his hand up. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So as an aspiring disciple.
Yes, Bhakta Hassan, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Mother, please accept my humble respect of obeisances. All glory to Gurudev, all glory to Srila Prabhupada, and all glory to you.
Haribol.
I must say that I was so blessed to meet you in person, and I'm very, 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 very fortunate. Unfortunately, I wanted to see you again, but there was no chance. But I hope and believe very soon we are going to meet again in the Ratha Yatra. Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Your Grace, Sahadev. Every time I hear the name of Haridas, I become so inspired. And every time I think of India, I think about Haridas. Because I really, really, really want to meet him, where he was chanting, where he passed his pastimes. But my question is, why is it that we don't have in the altars, we don't have the deity of a picture of Haridas Thakur, because he has a very good association with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. and he did a lot. So why is it that the sage Goswamis, their pictures in the altar, but there's no picture of Haridas Thakur? This is my question. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Bhakta Hassan. That's such a beautiful question. And I'm
Yeah.
just encouraged and inspired by your affection for Haridas Thakur. So why is he not on our ISKCON altar? That question I cannot really answer. I can say though that there are many, many very senior advanced devotees that have Haridas Thakur in the form of his deity form. I am not very advanced. I'm not so senior. I'm struggling to try to just be a devotee. However, by the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, I have Haridas Thakur deity that I worship every single day. So
I really want to have that too.
yes. And
Yes.
he's just so amazing. I have him right next to the holy name in Sanskrit, and I worship them both on our altar. So yes, Haridas Thakur has given us the holy name, and it's only by his mercy, right, that we can learn pastimes like this, how he,
Yes.
revived the prostitute from her forgetfulness of Krishna. So
Yes.
His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj, he worships Haridas Thakur. On the altar in Washington, D.C., Haridas Thakur is there in the deity form. There are many places where Haridas Thakur is there. However, ISKCON is evolving as an institution. We're evolving, and we're even now, after 50 years, beginning to appreciate some of these great personalities. So thank you. It's very, you're very evolved to be able to appreciate Haridas Thakur we don't never know how many lifetimes you've performed bhakti, but to be able for you to share with us that appreciation, it touches my heart. Thank you so much. And I love your t-shirt, by the way.
Thank you, Mother.
I grew up in Brooklyn, so has some meaning.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you so
Krishna.
much. Thank you, Mother Brad. If I'm not mistaken, just like you rightly said, I think most temples, ISKCON temples, may not have Haridas Thakur's murti or picture form, but there are a few temples of ISKCON that have Haridas Thakur's picture on the altar. So I think it depends on the temple president and the mood of the devotee. Shrimavara Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Humble obeisances, Mataji.
Obeisance to you.
All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for this wonderful kata. So many things mentioned, but I will limit my comment to the two last questions. One about Haridas Thakur. We may not have the deity of Haridas Thakur, but our litany, Jai Om Vishnupad, Namacharya, Brahmacharya, Haridas Thakur is glorified every day in all the temples.
Yes.
So that is to let you know how highly placed Haridas Thakur is in our prayer every day when they're chanting the litany, Jai Om Vishnupad at the end of every prayer arti. Haridas Thakur is glorified. Okay. And now about the Guru, so much has been said, but just one point, the last question about if a Guru cannot, if a devotee is not fertile, and for that reason is not reflecting his Guru, does that bring some judgment on the type of the Guru? No, not of course. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had so many wonderful saintly persons around him who are like touchstones, all of them practically. But there was Kalidas. There was Kalidas, who was his personal assistant, and he went away to the Bhattaharis, and Lord Chaitanya had to go drag him And later say, go away. That was the Supreme Lord himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No, no Mahabhagavad is more than Lord Chaitanya. But among those who fought, among his, under him was Kalidas. So now the scripture says, I don't know, maybe the Acharyas use the example of, if you want to know that the rice is cooked in a whole pot, right? So the rice becomes sidam, perfectly cooked. You take one, touch it, and you can tell that the rice is cooked. You don't have to test every single grain, right? You take one, and once it is soft enough, the rice has become sidam, perfectly cooked. Now, it might just happen that in that whole pot, there could be just one rice somewhere that happens not to absorb enough water. And happens to seem like, just not well cooked. But that would not diminish the fact that the rice pot is cooked. So when you see so many disciples of the Guru, and many of them are wonderful reflections of his Shakti. Now, just to have one or two, some spaced out grains in the pot, that will not say, oh, the whole rice pot is not cooked just because one is not, So we don't judge that way. There will always be some who may not. But even then, just like you yourself, Sadhu Prabhu, you've said many times here, the worst devotee is 1,000 times better than the best karmi. So even the worst devotee is 100 times better than the best karmi. So even the so-called disciple, if it is, if the guru is what is sought, even the worst disciple will still be a better example than an ordinary karma. Why? So you look at that chapter 9, text 30. Why did Krishna says, even if he commits the most abominable act, it should still be considered saintly? Prabhupada explained that if he is a demon, he will not be in the midst of devotees in the first place. If he is a demon, he will not even be attracted to devotional service in the first place. So he is trying, and he has a setback, does not condemn him outrightly. Are you getting the point? So that verse helps us.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu. You bring it up at some point, but yeah.
You're not hearing me?
You're breaking up, Prabhu, a little bit.
Is it okay?
Now yeah, now it's good. Thank you.
All right. So just let me conclude first.
Yeah, you were breaking up, but I think we got what you were saying.
I think you want to conclude, Saha.
Yeah.
So maybe he can conclude very quickly.
Yeah.
Is it better now? Okay.
Yeah, you can conclude. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said what I wanted to say, just that. So if somebody's a disciple and is not reflecting all the wonderful qualities of his guru, that does not automatically say that his guru
The connection is bad today.
right. Okay, anyway, so I'll stop there. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your input.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. So Madam Wright, you may try to give us your final word of wisdom, and we're likely going to bring this to a close today. But thank you for your love, wisdom, and always ready to share your love with us. Hare Krishna, please.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Varaha always for his wisdom. Varaha is very wise, and I'm always appreciating when I hear from him and all the other wise devotees, you know, that's on this call. Hari Chakra is here, Jagannath Pandit, so many wise devotees. So, you know, to have practiced for so many years, I want to thank you so much. And I just want to close out with you, with all of us just thinking about this verse, Bhagavad Gita 11:55, where Krishna says, Mat karma krit, engage in doing my work, offer our senses to him. Mat parama, Krishna tells us how to do this. He says, concerning me, the supreme, make Krishna the priority in our life, in our subtle body and our gross body, not just how our externals, not just our activities make him a part of our subtle body also. He also tells us, Mat bhakta, engage in my devotional service, give myself fully, just give myself fully to the Lord. Give my heart. Let us go away remembering I belong to Krishna and Krishna belongs to me. We belong to each other. This is Krishna's, he gives us, he tells us, he tells us how to come to him. He tells us what's important to him. And then he says, Sangha Varjitaha, that how do we do this? We have to give up bad association, give up association that doesn't remind us of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught us, give up association of people that don't let us remember Krishna. Don't be hypocritical and don't have enemies. So these, oh Lord, the Lord teaches us through Arjuna. And if we put these into practice in our lives, then transcendental knowledge will definitely glow. We will glow with transcendental knowledge. So this is my closing. And yeah, I thank you all so much again for engaging me in service. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Hari.
much, Hare Krishna. And on this note, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant the loudest Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation for our beloved mother, sister, auntie, whichever relationship you may have with Her Grace Mother Vrajalila, please. Jai. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kripa Sindhu Vacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha.
All glories to Her Grace Mother Vrajalila Devi ki
Jai.
jai.
African Yachat Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki.